Hello, my name is Rob Lester. I'm a Cloud Solutions Architect at Microsoft, and today I'm going to be talking to you about what we've been doing at Microsoft to democratize AI and our different AI services within Azure. So let's take a quote from Satya. Our goal is to democratize AI to empower every person and every organization to achieve more. So the kind of stuff that we've been doing over the last 10 years or so is to make our services available, attainable, make our services there and accessible by anyone that wants to start using AI. Now, to start off with, I'm just going to give an overview of the challenges that we see in AI and give a bit of a insight into where we are in the whole machine learning AI space. So we sit very much here in the artificial narrow intelligence area of AI. So what does this mean? This means that AI, while AI can do a lot of things, it doesn't have much common sense. It can't think for itself. We have to teach it. We have to show it the things. We need to give it stuff. We need to explain to it the stuff that we want it to learn. It can't go out and find new information for itself. And so all of that essentially means we're in. AI is good, it does the job well, it can't do any other job than the job you teach it to do. As we progress through time, we then, the next stage of AI will be the artificial general intelligence. This is where machines are able to start thinking for themselves, they're able to start bringing their own information and make decisions, and then further down, artificial superintelligence, where we reach AI more clever than a person can think. This is way off. Some people speculate at around 2040 we have artificial general intelligence, and around 2060 we reach artificial superintelligence. But those are only estimates. At the moment, we're still very much in the narrow intelligence space. So if we look at the impact AI is having in the world, we can see across all the major countries that AI is now impacting and increasing profitability, increasing labour. We see problems around hyper-capitalism. So hyper-capitalism is an area, is a methodology where, well, not a methodology, it's a problem where the industry is moving too quickly for people to keep up with jobs. So new jobs are emerging all the time. People haven't got time to train on those new jobs. So we always have a job shortfall. And this is a problem with AI in particular. And so there's a lot of stuff that we do at Microsoft is to try and make it so people don't need to have to do as much training. You don't have to, we have drag and drop AI, we have web services, we have off-the-shelf AI that you can use. So you don't have to go and have to go off and learn everything there is to know about statistics and algorithms to be able to go off and use AI. So we see in this space, we see a lot of roles starting to become less relevant, roles that are more roles to do with repetitive tasks, more roles to do with things. We can do quite good jobs now in natural language processing, so things like data entry clerks being eroded. We can do things, we can do voice to text to voice, and understand what people are saying. So some of those roles, some of those jobs that you have where you are talking to someone and collecting information, those jobs are now somewhat irrelevant because we can automate all that. So we see driverless cars. Driverless cars obviously has a big impact on people that are taxi drivers, couriers, these kind of things. Once we have more driverless cars, again, those jobs will start to be eroded. But generally, the jobs that are being created from AI is greater than the jobs that are being lost. So this Gartner believes that 2.3 million jobs will be created, while 1.8 million jobs will be lost. Here's a really good quote from the director of London School of Economics. In the past, jobs were about muscles. Now they're about brains. In the future, they'll be about the heart. So we can kind of see this with the agricultural industry. You can see the number of jobs in the agricultural industry is in sharp decline because we're automating everything. We're not making less food, we're making more food, but everything is being automated. We start to see this hitting other industries with the power of AI to automate and make decisions, etc. So we're now moving in the AI space, we're kind of moving into areas such as hyper-personalization, which is where we get where you can create AI that understands individuals and able to cater for those individual needs. Obviously, it could be good used for good or evil. We've seen a lot of stuff in terms of voting and targeting people for voting. But it's also useful for targeting advertising, making sure you're reaching the right people, etc., etc. Other problems that we're starting to see in the AI industry is, you may have heard of deep fakes before, so we can now effectively create a person from nothing. So these people don't exist. There's a website down here, this person doesn't exist, which is a great, if you want to go and look at that, it will show you a picture of someone that is created from nothing. So we can now create people from nothing. We can now put other people's faces on other people. We can do voice, so we can take someone's voice and make it say something, whatever we want. And we start to see these problems hitting the AI industry in terms of, recently there was a German company was scammed out of £250,000 because someone created a deep fake of his voice, and they were then able to talk to some of the satellite offices and ask them to transfer some money. They believed it was him because even though it was an AI, it was realistic. So these are the kind of problems. And as we start to see legislation happening, also at Microsoft, we only do ethical AI, and we'll come on to that in a bit, but we start to see the EU AI Act, which is talking about it being illegal to do subliminal messages using AI, illegal to socially score someone using an AI system. You may have seen, it's a good episode on Black Mirror about that. Using AI that might exploit vulnerable people, and also using real-time biometrics, so face identification for enforcement purposes such as police, this kind of stuff, which is obviously an area that there's been a lot of controversy about. So the AI Act is coming into force. We're starting to see legislation around this. We also, at Microsoft, we've way before any legislation, we made a stand that we were going to make sure that we were doing ethical AI. We formed different organisations with the likes of Google, Facebook, etc., to make sure we were, as an industry, doing things ethically. And we also have our own principles around fairness, around ethical AI. So fairness, reliability, safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. So these are our kind of pillars of making sure that when we do AI, it's ethical. We also ask partners to sign a partner pledge, and as part of that partner pledge, we ask them to make sure that they only do ethical AI. So let's talk about some of the kind of stuff that we've been doing at Microsoft in the AI field. So we've been developing deep neural networks that we've been making available as part of our cognitive services. And as we develop those deep neural networks, as we invest in the technology and the science behind it, we start to see things reaching human parity. So object detection, we reached human parity in 2016. Speech recognition, we reached human parity in 2017. So you may have seen that come into play if you go through a drive-through, maybe a McDonald's drive-through. You might, and you talk to the system. It will be understanding what you say in a way that is much better than it used to be 10 years ago. So we've actually reached the point where we can understand what people are saying better than a human would be able to understand what people were saying, given the context of the background noise, given the context of the different words that are used. So at McDonald's, you might be talking about a Big Mac. It's not really a dictionary word, but we can take these our cognitive services, and we can create custom versions and train them just on specific dictionaries, etc. Reading comprehension reached human parity. Machine translation, speech synthesis reached human parity, and the list goes on. So, let's talk about what we've been doing at Microsoft to make things accessible. So let's say it's kind of the same concepts. If you wanted some hot water, you could go away and you could light a fire and you could get a pot and you could boil it, or you could just go and invest in the boiler. I always think of cognitive services just getting a boiler, and you're getting your AI all done for you. You don't need to go off, you don't need to learn Python, you don't need to learn algorithms, you don't need to get loads of data to push it through. We have access to a great deal of data, so our cognitive services are extremely good at doing the jobs that they need to, better probably than you would be able to, because you'd have problems sourcing the data. For example, our speech to text our speech to text is being trained on a massive variety of good to poor quality data. That means when you run it in a call center, or if you run it in a McDonald's drive-through, or if you run it in a studio environment, you're going to get good results regardless of the quality that you're pushing through. So we have, so in terms of the stuff we've done, around 2014 we developed Azure Machine Learning Studio. So this is now called Azure Machine Learning Studio Classic. This is a drag and drop interface, so ability to do machine learning without needing to, again, type lines of code. So as you can see here, just dragging elements in, and it does it, and it does it all for you. Drag and drop machine learning. It still uses the same algorithms you'd be using if you were coding it, so it's still extremely powerful, but easy to use. We've actually moved that. So this was the one we did in 2014. We've actually now taken that. We have a new offering called Azure Machine Learning Studio, and we have this as part of Azure Machine Learning Studio with drag and drop interface still in there. So we haven't lost that drag and drop interface, but we have created a product that has all the elements that you might need, be you a data scientist or a data engineer, to let you be able to either do drag and drop, use wizards, or actually go in and code in Python or R. So, talking about other services, so the kind of things that we like to do is add AI into existing services. So we'll talk a bit about Power BI and the AI we've had into there. I always like to think of AI as your first step if you have some data and you want to do some data science on that data. Power BI lets you go in, play with that data, understand that data, and then you might think, okay, so I can get something out of this data, so I might move on to actually creating some AI models. I might go into creating a drag and drop interface to do it. But this is kind of your first stage of thinking about your data and doing machine learning or artificial intelligence. So with Power BI, we have things like anomaly detection. So again, you just create a line chart, click anomaly detection on the side, and it will pick out anomalies for you. So you can understand, and if you can click on it, and it will break down why that is a particular anomaly and trying to explain it. We have the ability to forecasting. In the bottom left, we see here a trend line, and we can see where that trend line is likely to go. So a good way to look at your profit and loss maybe, or just understanding patterns. So again, just one click, we can do this. We can do, within Power BI, we can analyze the increase and decrease in, understand why your sales might have jumped up 1 month or gone down 1 month. Just click on it, explain the increase or decrease, and it will go away, do some machine learning behind the scenes, and give you an explanation of why that might be the case that came up. We have things such as clustering. So if you're a data scientist, this is K-means clustering behind the scenes. So effectively, you can take an amount of data and put it into separate clusters. So within this example, it might be that you were looking at profitability, and it might be that all the orange dots were customers that were most profitable to you. So you might then think, well, what do all these have in common? What kind of where do we advertise? What do we need to do to get these kind of more of these customers in? We have things like key influencers. So if you're coming from a data science background, you want to know if the thing that you're trying to predict is predictable in Power BI. You could just put it into Power BI. So in this example, we are looking at likelihood for someone to get a loan. So we've put the data into Power BI, we said we want to predict if someone's going to get a loan, and it's gone through and it's told us if that is predictable and the things that it's going to use to predict that. So for example, this one, we'll be looking at your 77.2% likely to get a loan if you have a master's degree and your marital status is married with spouse. We have quick insights in Power BI, so you can go run it across all your data. We have things such as R and Python integration, so you can do more complicated visualization. So here's a 3D chart we can use, or here's a decision tree within there. And we have other, and we integrate with our cognitive services, so we can do detect language, we can do key phrase extraction, sentiment analysis, we can take images and tag those images, or we can create, we can even connect back into custom Azure machine learning models if you have developers or data scientists that have created them for you. Which leads on to some of our other services. So the more common in terms of AI services that we see customers using of ours, things like bot service, so the ability to create a bot very quick and easy. You can even create a bot from an FAQ. So if you have an FAQ about your company, you can just plug that into cognitive services and it will go away, and a couple of clicks, takes about a minute. You then have a bot that you can put on your website that will be able to, people will be able to talk to, and it will be able to give answers based on your organization, based on the FAQ that you might have given it to. We have things like cognitive search, so a big search engine that can also do natural language processing, forms recognizer, so you can take your expenses, push them through forms recognizer, and it will identify all the different elements of that expense, or a receipt or a passport. Video indexer, so you can push video through. And we've also got Metrics Advisor, Immersive Reader, and we have our customizable AI models as well. So we have things like vision, speech, language, and decision. I'm going to go into them in a bit more detail. In fact, let's go to the next slide and break down the actual elements that we have under here. So these are cognitive services. These are just web services that you can call. Behind the scenes, they're deep neural networks that we've trained, but you can just go in, call it via web service, and get the results back. I've highlighted ones that you can customize as well. So you have computer vision, so you can identify objects, so a train, a car, a person, or you can use custom vision. You can take that with a drag and drop interface. You can create a version that will understand your specific domain. So if you are, for example, a jeweler's, you might create one that will understand different types of earrings or different types of ring. And then you can automate that. You might be a supermarket and want to identify different types of vegetables that people are putting through your automated till system. So vision, understanding people's faces, understanding emotions. We have understanding if the content is not appropriate content as well. We have speech, so we can speech recognition, so you can use that as second line of authentication. And we have and also speech to text, which forms the basis of most of the other services. So if you're talking to someone, you can use speech to text, then you can use translation services, then do text to speech. So language services, things like text analytics, doing translations, understanding what context of sentences. So I'm going down to the cricket grounds and I'm going to take my bat. It will know that it's a bat, that it's a wooden bat, not a mammal, flying mammal. And then decisions, so anomaly detector, a content moderator, to identify if anything's going through that, for example, X-rated images or someone swearing in a forum, that will be able to identify those kind of things. Metrics analyzer, personalizer as well. So personalizer, so you can personalize a different experience for different individuals or different customers. So this is using the vision, so computer vision. So we have a post-it note that someone's written, and we can run that computer vision on that post-it note, and we get back this JSON, which gives us all the bounding boxes of where everything is in the post-it note, gives us all the words that we get. So a bit like OCR, we do have OCR in there, but a bit like OCR, but for written text. As you can see, we get all the bounding boxes, all the words that we have as well. It's just an API call. So just an API call and you get back JSON, just pass the JSON and there's your result. So you can use these anywhere. So you can, our cognitive services, you can call on the internet, you can download them in a container and run them in a container. They have massive scale, they're secure, but I guess the key thing for most people is the fact that anyone can call them from any language that you can call a web service from, which is pretty much any language that you might be working in. So C#, Java, Python, etc. So just a few, I'm just going to go through really briefly a few examples. So this is the vision. As you can see, it's tagging. We've actually recently reached parity in terms of being able to describe an image. So we have this image here and we have a description coming off, a young man riding a skateboard. So we can now, with the cognitive services, we can describe an image better than a person would, or to the same level than a person would be able to describe an image. So speech services. So again, we've surpassed human parity in terms of understanding speech.
That's about how old ours is.
So we see it. So you hear that. This is an example of taking that and pushing it through our cognitive services. And in fact, I'll just let's listen to that again.
That's about how old ours is.
So not easy to understand. You can kind of, if you want to choose A, B, or C, have a go. But
that's about how old ours is.
And so this will be picked up, but this is basically cognitive services understanding what she's saying. So general language understanding, again, reached human parity, ability to take a sentence and understand context of that. So in this sentence, we see the City Council refused the demonstrators permit because they advocated violence. So we ask cognitive services, who is they? And it will go, okay, that's the demonstrators, but we changed advocated to feared, and it goes, oh, actually you mean the City Council then. So again, being able to read a document and answer questions on the document better than a person could do that. We also have reinforcement learning. We won't go into that today. So again, just a recap on some of our services in terms of vision services. So emotions, face recognizer, understanding people, creating custom domains to understand specific problems that you might face, like maybe, like I said, packets in a supermarket, different types of fruit, these kind of things. Again, all drag and drop.
Show me all flights from Pittsburgh to Boston, both direct and connecting, that depart Pittsburgh after 7 p.m.
This is an example of using custom speech. So we have trained so there is the baseline speech which you can use, but you can then train custom speech and you can train on specific words. So in this example, it's an airport. So we've trained it the words that are more common are things like depart and Pittsburgh. We've trained it to understand the ambience and the background noise. Airports are always noisy places with a lot of ambient noise in the background. So it's been trained to filter that out, and you can see the improvements that you get in using a custom speech. And again, this is very easy to train. We can also do custom text to voice as well. You can even, if you bring in a voice actor, you get your voice actor to read a script, and then you train your speech model to be able to sound the same as that voice actor. So they could then be the voice of your organization, and you can use that voice, with what you don't have to keep bringing the actor back. You can just use that voice to do whatever you want, just type in some text and get that voice to then read in the same way that that voice actor would do. Okay, so it's language. So we do things like understand language, key phrase, sentiment as well. So understanding the sentiment behind the language is obviously quite a popular service. Typical use case, you might have a product that you release, and then you bring in any tweets about that product from Twitter, and then understand the sentiment. So you understand how the market's understanding, if they're enjoying your product or not enjoying your product. Then we have Azure Machine Learning Studio. So as I said before, this is the kind of center of if you want to go a bit deeper into machine learning. If you want to do things such as create your own models, if you're a Python developer, you can come in here. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but just at a high level, it's got compute services. It integrates with Git. It's got wizards in it. In fact, one of the wizards that we have is automated machine learning. So this is where we just you take some data, you tell it what you want to predict, it's going to go away, and it's going to do the job of a data scientist. So it's going to run through lots of different algorithms. It's going to do hyperparameter tuning on those algorithms, and it's going to give you the best possible algorithm that it can find across all the main algorithms that you might have. It even goes into deep learning to try and identify it. So what we see is you input your data, tell it what you want to predict. So it might be a classification, you might want to predict if someone's getting a loan or not, you might want to predict, it might be regression, you might want to understand where your sales price might be if with a set of data. It might be forecasting to predict where your share price might be in the future. Obviously, it's a bit difficult to do share price. There's too many inputs to understand that, but predict your general where your sales will hit. That's obviously a lot easier. So what we do is we push you set up the data, tell it what you want to predict. Like I said, all in a wizard. It will go through, run lots of different algorithms. So we can see lots of different algorithms here. Some of them are better than others. So you wouldn't want that 25% one. You'd want that 95% one. It'll do hyperparameter tuning. And then we have an optimized model. And we can take that optimized model and then we can deploy it. And then just to sum up, because we've talked a lot about the AI services. So just give you a brief overview of all the other services that we have in Azure to do with machine learning. I'm not going to go through these in any detail, but just to give you an idea that we have lots of different things. So if you have C# developers, we have ML.NET, which you can use to develop and operationalize your machine learning. We have ways of developing machine learning from small data to big data services. So Databricks, Azure Synapse can deal with lots of data and build models on top of it. We have lots of ways of operationalizing your models. So we have field programmable gate arrays, which are chips in Azure that you can just flash with a model. We have Kubernetes. You can operationalize in SQL Server or Azure SQL Database. We have Azure Functions you can operationalize, and obviously we talked a bit about Power BI. So that was a brief overview of some of the stuff that we've been doing in Azure to democratize AI. If you go to Microsoft Docs, you'll be able to go in and we have lots more examples, or if you look at cognitive services, you can go in and get a bit of deeper understanding on what we have there. And with that, I will finish. So thank you for viewing this presentation.